This is BYU Sports Nation, brought to you by the BYU Store, simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now, from Studio B, here's Spencer Linton and Jarom Jordan.
BYU Sports Nation is live, your day-to-day play-by-play in Studio B, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. It is Wednesday, September 22nd. Wherever and however you're connected, wonderful to have you with us. I am Spencer Linton, once again teamed up alongside a man working towards what he hopes is a first ballot BYU Sports Nation Hall of Fame induction, Jarom Jordan.
We should make the BYUSN Hall of Fame, and then we just
Why not?
Induct whoever, whenever. Okay, so this just out literally seconds ago. The BYU Athletic Hall of Fame has announced its 5 inductees this year. Jimmer Fradette is getting inducted.
Hey-o!
It's been 10 years. We'll talk about that. That he's a minimum year inductee, if you will. That's the highest honor. Brian Banks from baseball, Gay Merrill, who was a longtime trainer here, Amy Menlove Otis, shout out to Goodyear, Arizona, track and field, and Carrie Summerhays Roberts, the women's golf coach. She was a legit player here. These are the 5. You're hosting the induction ceremony Friday night, which is pretty cool. Congratulations to all 5 of these.
Yeah, really, really cool class in 2021. And like you said, Jimmer with the 10-year minimum, this is the first ballot Hall of Fame for BYU, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be a first ballot guy. 10 years,
in the BYU
10 years after you retire from BYU Sports Nation?
I have some thoughts on the 10-year thing.
Okay.
Let's talk about it.
All
Not
right.
10-year, 10-year. Yeah.
We've got a Hall of Fame show lineup for all of you. What kind of chance are you seriously giving BYU football to make a run at a New Year's Six bowl game this year? We ask because, again, national writers are bringing it up. The voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell, joins us live. What type of challenge will USF present to BYU on Saturday night? The Cougars, heavy favorites, in fact, by 23 points. Plus, major news for BYU women's sports. And the Elk, Isaac Rex, explains that final dramatic touchdown in the win against Arizona State. Bring on today's BYU Sports Nation headlines.
Number 15 BYU football hosts South Florida Saturday night. Bulls coach Jeff Scott says he was surprised when he watched the BYU film.
I knew they were going to be big and physical. What I wasn't aware of until I turned the video on is how fast they are. I mean, they got linebackers, beating running backs to the edges and just go, wow, that kid right there can run.
Yes, he can. I don't even know who he's referring to, but I love it. Maybe it's Peyton Wilgar. Maybe it's, who knows. The Bulls also announced freshman Timmy McClain is getting the start. This ensures a BYU victory.
Hey-o!
Cougar pregame live on BYU Radio is at 8 Eastern with countdown to kickoff on BYU TV at 9 Eastern.
I love Jeff Scott. He is a very, very entertaining personality. Comes from Dabo Sweeney's coaching lineage.
Former co-OC at Clemson.
How about this? Smarty Streets, a leader in location data intelligence, announces name, image, and likeness deal for all female student athletes at BYU. Every single one of them. Offering up to $6,000 per athlete. Again, this includes walk-ons and Cougarettes. With more than 300 female athletes at BYU, the total compensation could surpass $2 million.
That's incredible. And to take all the women's teams, because the Built Bar deal was incredible. It's for the BYU football team and those walk-ons, and that meant so much, right? Now Smarty, which is incredible. Smarty Street's doing it for all the women's teams. That includes the cheerleaders, by the way. We don't often talk about them as a women's team, but they are that. That's awesome. That's so incredible. What an amazing opportunity for the amazing women of BYU. You and I call the games for the women of BYU, and we really appreciate what they do and who they are. So this is awesome for them.
The groundbreaking deals continue at BYU with Built Bar and now Smarty Street. That's fantastic.
Who else is doing this? Who else is doing this?
It's so cool.
College athletics. We're going to talk to Liz Darger coming up about it. Get ready for hoop season with the BYU men's basketball season preview. Live from the opening day of practice as Tyler Haas and I introduce you to the newcomers, returning starters, and storylines you need to know, plus enjoy mic'd-up coaches and a loaded guest lineup. It's next Tuesday, September 28th at 9 Eastern on BYU TV and the app. Very excited about that. It was a ton of fun last year.
Jarom, all they do is win. BYU women's golf back at it. Held off 2 top 25 teams to win the Mercedes-Benz Collegiate Championship in Knoxville, Tennessee. That means the ladies are 2 for 2 in tournaments in the fall season. They won by 3 shots over number 15 Miami, BYU will next travel to Wolcott, Colorado for the Golf Week Challenge at Red Sky Golf Club September 27th through the 29th. Yeah, you can expect the women's golf team to jump into the top 25 this week as well.
Let's go. Get them all in. Following a 2-1 loss to Utah State on Saturday, women's soccer has dropped out of the United Soccer Coaches Poll for the first time since the final poll of the 2018 season. Crazy. They'll be back in soon. Don't worry. After a bye week, the Cougars play at number 20 Gonzaga, and Chris Watkins, former BYU men's soccer head coach, women's soccer assistant coach.
Okay.
Friday, October 2nd. Hey, you win that, boom, you're back in.
Yes, and BYU's had their way against Chris Watkins-led Gonzaga.
This Gonzaga scoring a ton of goals. They're like top 10 in total goals scored.
How about that? Chris Watkins, again, coaching with Jen Rockwood. He likes to score a lot of goals. It's going to be a fun match.
What coach doesn't like to score? You know what? I only like 2.
He's an offensive-minded coach.
That'd be awesome. I only like 1 goal a game.
He's an offensive guy for sure. Michael Rucker, pitching for the Chicago Cubs in the major leagues, hasn't given up a run in his last 4 outings. Attaboy, Michael. In a loss yesterday against the Twins, he threw 12 pitches, 11 strikes. The Cubs play the Twins again tonight at 7:40 Eastern. So even if it doesn't work out with the Cubs, because, again, they're not going to make the playoffs, this is a good resume for Michael Rucker to make his way to another Major League Baseball team. Or just maybe the Cubs are like, hey, we've seen some stuff. We're going to keep you up here.
He's playing in the majors.
It's awesome. It's fantastic.
And BYU softball releases its fall schedule, which includes 6 home games, 2 road games, and 5 blue and white scrimmages, so plenty of ball. First of which is tomorrow afternoon at home.
All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
The New Year's 6. Here we are once again, following BYU's 11-1 campaign in 2020 with Zach Wilson and those 5 draft picks, ton of NFL guys that flirted for a moment, we thought, with the New Year's 6. Until they didn't, Jarom, and the committee said, nope, BYU's not the team that's going to get in. However, BYU's schedule, you may have noticed, is much tougher. They have 3 Power 5 victories in 3 games played in 2021. Now, national writers are again bringing up the New Year's 6, specifically from Brett McMurphy. And I quote, look at the remainder of the BYU Cougars schedule, and there's a possibility of an 11-0 BYU visiting USC in the regular season finale. If so, win or lose versus USC, I'm projecting the Cougars earn a New Year's 6 bowl bid. End quote. There's a lot there, Jarom. So I ask you this. Is this BYU's best chance ever at a New Year's 6 bowl?
It might be, because BYU's playing 7 Power 5s. Once BYU's in the Big 12, starting in 2023, the Cougars will play 8 or 9, or maybe 10. Because if BYU plays Utah every year, plus, let's say the Big 12 says, yeah, we're playing 9 conference games, then it'd be 10 almost every year, right? And there's, I just don't see a season where BYU is going to put together an 84 type thing. 84 is 84 because Pitt's 3-7-1 and Michigan's 6-6 in the end. You know what I mean? Like, if the 84 team played the Big 12 schedules, it would win lose 1, 2, or 3 games, right? It's going to be much harder. So I wonder if this is, because this first half of the season has been set up to where BYU can realistically have a legit chance of going 6-0. The back 6 is going to be tougher, like we've talked about the last couple of days, with 4 Power 5s, 3 on the road. In the Big 12, I think it will be a tougher Power 5 slate than what BYU is playing this year. There aren't as many Washington States and Virginias and so on and so forth, right? There's more USCs, if you will, when BYU's in the Pac-12. So I think that this might be BYU's best shot at a New Year's 6 bowl ever. Granted, in a Big 12, if BYU has 2 losses, still might have a shot at a New Year's 6. Now, that might be the difference. I do expect BYU to be a better team in the next couple years in the Big 12 as well, meaning the backups are better. The starters have never been in question here. It's, can the backups be good enough? When a Keenan Peely goes down, can Ben Bywater be good enough? That's the question we're going to figure out the rest of the season.
It's easy to say in the moment right now because BYU's 3-0, and the juju is really good. Everybody's feeling awesome. Arizona, Utah, Arizona State all go down. So, yeah, it's like, oh, man, maybe this is the best chance. But as you pointed out, getting into the Big 12, a 2-loss BYU team could still play in a New Year's 6 bowl game, especially if they go to the Big 12 championship game and the winner of that game is invited to the college football playoff. Then by default, the runner-up in the Big 12 gets a New Year's Six bowl game invite. In fact,
they might even be another at-large.
You could be a 3-loss team and play in the championship game. And with the rules as they are, it's like, oh yeah, like 9-3, yeah, you can play in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah, 3 loss would mean you probably had 2 losses in non-con, but you only had 0 or 1 loss in league.
Right.
Most years, right?
So I think mathematically speaking, when you get into the Big 12, just because of those exceptions, BYU is probably going to have a little bit better of a chance to get into a New Year's Six bowl game because there will be more leeway to lose. There's more understanding if you're in a Power 5 conference. Like, oh, yeah, well, but look at the schedule. They lost to number 6 Iowa State twice, once in the regular season and once in the Big 12 championship. Iowa State's going to play in the college football playoff, or TCU, or Baylor, or whoever.
In the multiverse? I was like, Iowa State
or whoever, whoever. But BYU's done enough as the runner-up to get into a New Year's Six game. We saw this happen with Virginia and Bronco Mendenhall when Clemson was dominant in the ACC. Virginia gets blown out in the ACC championship game. But it's like, well, Clemson's going to the college football playoff, so the ACC is going to have their spot.
Hopefully, because the ACC kind of stinks besides Clemson.
Right.
I don't think the Big 12 – honestly, you take Clemson out of the ACC.
Is the Big 12 better?
The new Big 12 is way better.
Is the Big 12 better than that?
Yes. I don't think the Big 12 is going to have any dominant teams like Clemson or Alabama anytime soon. In fact, it may not have a college football playoff team for a while.
Yeah.
But it will have, 4 top 25 teams or whatever or more in it. I think, top to bottom minus Kansas, those games are good to super hard every week. Yeah.
Interesting stuff. And again, we heard from our boy Paul Saban, who works for ESPN Analytics. He's giving BYU a 1% chance to run the table.
Yeah, I don't think BYU's running the table. Like, it's going to be way too hard.
And even an 11-1 BYU, Brett McMurphy brought up, hey, 11-0 going to USC, win or lose, I'm still putting him in a game. Like,
I don't know if you can lose the last game, and it's tough, right?
Okay, even 11-0, what's the chances of that? 3 or 4%?
Not high.
Mathematically?
Yeah,
so it's going to be, so that's why I like the Big 12. I think that there's just a better opportunity there.
Yes. 11-1 is a really interesting conversation there. Okay, topic 2. The BYU Athletics Hall of Fame inductees are out, as we mentioned. For those interested, here's the criteria used. Minimum 2 years in a varsity sport. There's no JV anymore, right? All-American status. University graduation. That was a Jim McMahon thing. He didn't graduate until late. Professional accomplishments. Community service. Sportsmanship. What if they're like, you didn't make it in, you were a bad sport. And 10 years since final year of eligibility. That's why Jimmer Fradette's in now and not earlier. Matthew Dellavedova and St. Mary's, they inducted him the next year. They don't have as tough a criteria as BYU. Should there be a Jimmer exception? Should he have been inducted earlier than now?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe the 10 years becomes a 5-year thing. I don't know. I'm not sure why they settled on 10 years.
Maybe it's they're waiting for their pro career to finish.
Yeah, perhaps.
Maybe.
It's just like, let them go do their thing professionally for a decade.
Jimmer's still going.
He's still playing basketball in China.
Report said he's going to China, right?
Yeah. It's not confirmed. Maybe I'll ask him on Friday.
Yeah. Let's find
Jimmer,
out
from the podium. What's the deal, man? You going to play in China or what?
And then just call me. He's joining us Monday, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. We can ask him then too.
He'd join us Friday. He's got a golf tournament.
I get where you're coming from with the Jimmer exception. Like when someone is so transcendent and so good.
If you're the National Player of the Year,
yes.
Can we just do like the next year?
Like, okay, it's official.
It's your junior year. You're at BYU. Can we just put Zach Wilson in now?
At least make the announcement. Zach Wilson will be inducted into the BYU Athletic Hall of Fame in 2030. It's official.
You just call it. Yeah. Well, so we can say that now.
They can still keep their 10 years.
We can literally say that now.
That will happen. Yes. So maybe we don't need an exception. We just call it for what it is.
Well,
Zach, good luck in the NFL for 10 years. We'll see you in 2030 for the BYU Athletic Hall of Fame.
Is it because they're literally busy? Is that why?
Maybe.
I would also All-American status. I have a problem with this. Was Fred Warner an All-American? I don't think he was. But Fred Warner was All-Pro last year. He should be in the. Is it only they take into consideration professional accomplishments, right?
Maybe they'll find a Lindy Sports preseason All-American exception.
Should we give him an All-American nod from 20?
Yeah, BYU Sports Nation All-American Fred Warner. Okay, he's good for the Hall of Fame.
And this is good criteria. I just want to think are we going to be able to include a Fred Warner because his NFL career is way better than his BYU career? Are we taking that into account? Virgil Carter got
does
in.
Daniel Sorensen get into the BYU Athletic Hall of Fame?
Right.
He's won a couple he's been to a couple of Super Bowls.
Was not an All-American, I think,
he wasn't.
at BYU. So, yeah, those are the interesting debates, right?
Interesting.
Is he in the Hall of Good or the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, and I know Daniel's in a different area than Fred Warner. Fred Warner might be the best linebacker
He's in the white safety Hall of Fame.
With Eric Weddle?
Yes. Jason Sehorn's like, I'm a corner. Can I be in?
Our question of the day. Is this year, 2021, BYU football's best shot at a New Year's Six bowl game? You heard our opinions. We want to hear yours. Let's go to Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports Nation.
At Playoff Bogey answers, best shot to date? Yes. Best shot forever? No. The Big 12 will make a difference. And with the college football playoff expanding, it might be easier to get the college football playoff as an at-large than it is to get to the New Year's Six right now. I don't know.
Because of, I understand. Because you don't have the conference affiliation. There would be more.
Yeah.
Like certain years, it's weird when the playoff is certain bowl games and certain leagues get in and whatnot.
There are always tie-ins for the Power 5
this year, there's 3 or 4 at-larges? Yeah.
Correct.
But depending on what they decide, and they still haven't decided, by the way, if they go to 8 or they go to 12, whatever. If it's 12, if there's automatic bids, blah, blah, blah. If there's not.
The Alliance is pushing back. The Pac-12, the ACC, and the Big Ten are pushing back on a 12-team playoff.
Yeah, the SEC is like, we want to get 5 teams in.
Yeah, the SEC is like, we will do what we want to do, and they probably will.
NFL too? You mean NFL too? Coming up, Jaron Hall, compared to Baker Mayfield, do we like it?
Plus, the voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell, on if he thinks this is the best shot for BYU to get into New Year's Six in 2021, and what kind of challenge will USF present? This is BYU Sports Nation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Bodyguards, protection for a life worth living.
I know what it's like to be overlooked, to be doubted, to fly under the radar. I only had one offer coming out of high school, but I was ready for every moment, every opportunity, and every shot that I got. Now I'm playing professional basketball, aiming to be one of the best shooters on the planet. And I'm just getting started. Be ready for your moment with Rapid Reboot, the future of rapid recovery.
Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork sells Ford vehicles including the F-150, the pickup designed for work and play. Tim Daly Ford maintains a large inventory, providing more choices for selecting an F-150 with the power and engineering to carry and tow heavy loads. The F-150's design offers comfort, safety, and a range of options to choose from. Think Ford. Think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
This is Countdown to Kickoff.
Guys, I'm done. Players are tough. Broadcasters are way tougher than players.
Absolutely.
Algier into the end zone. A little punctuation.
That is how you start Countdown to Kickoff.
Touchdown! Isaac Rex laying out for the score.
I'm going to mark that one down. That's big enough.
Early spicy, mark it down.
Mark it down.
Yeah.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Get ready for hoop season with the BYU men's basketball season preview live from the opening day of practice as Tyler Haas and I introduce you to the newcomers, returning starters, and storylines you need to know, plus enjoy mic'd up coaches and a loaded guest lineup. It's next Tuesday, September 28th at 9 Eastern on BYU TV and the app.
The basketball season preview.
We're already there.
Sneaking up on us.
Let's go.
Amidst football season. Great stuff. Looking forward to that. Alongside Jarom Jordan, I'm Spencer Linton. We are live in Studio B with your day-to-day BYU sports play-by-play, and it is our pleasure to welcome in once again the voice of the Cougars, live on set, Greg Wrubell, to discuss BYU potentially to a New Year's Six bowl in 2021. We'll get there. But first, Jimmer Fradette, among others, going into the BYU Athletic Hall of Fame. Greg, what's your reaction to Jimmer getting the first ballot Hall of Fame induction 10 years after the fact?
He sneaks in. He just barely sneaks in. Yeah,
there was one voter that said no.
That was an automatic, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was so automatic.
And everyone else, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because obviously he was going to get in. We just said, hey, Zach Wilson's getting in 2030. Like, and this class is pretty good too. Brian Banks and Kerry Roberts, and just athletically, whenever someone gets into the Hall of Fame every year, I go, oh yeah, they were awesome. It's a pretty fun thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Jimmer Fradette memory?
I think I remember going the most nuts, and I went nuts a few times, right? But I think in Vegas, even though it was a neutral floor, wasn't the Marriott Center Magic, when he passed Danny Ainge for the scoring record and led him over New Mexico, that just kind of felt where everything just kind of just peaked and culminated, and it was peak Jimmer, right? And so I think that's one of the favorite nights that I can recall. And there were so many great ones. And when you get to the NCAA tournament and you're advancing there, that's a big deal too. But the focus on him and the numbers he was putting up, and then Danny being in the building and passing, just the whole thing.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty once in a lifetime.
It's wild that he gets the single game and the career on the same play.
Yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah.
With
and he hadn't shot a free throw until that point.
Yeah, I mean, when you're into the 50s, and it's a tournament game. I mean, it's a win or go home in the tournament, at least situation.
The retribution against New Mexico.
Yeah, there was a lot going in. So that was one where I just really remember just losing my mind.
Yes, fantastic.
When did you realize that, okay, Jimmer Mania had begun? Because his junior year, we knew he was really good, like very good, and then he comes back. There was a chance he could leave. He came back. At what point were you like, oh my gosh, this is like another level?
It felt like it was early in the next season. I know the Glens Falls trip for me was an indication that, and granted, he was going home, mind you, but it was still a unique thing. Like, this was a player getting a homecoming in this college scenario that was being nationally covered, and I just kind of sensed there was something really special building, that this could be something you could really, build a season story around, and it kind of went from there.
That was the weirdest game I've ever been to. Let me tell you why, because I was at the game too. The fans there only rooted for Jimmer and nothing else. There were no cheerleaders. There was no kind of music pumping. It was in an old hockey venue, just down the street from his house. So he would score, and anyone else would score, and it was just like, it was the weirdest game I've been to.
Vermont from the neighboring state would score, and nothing would happen.
Nothing.
Right.
It was so weird.
Yeah. Dave Rose told me a fantastic story last week, by the way. He said Vermont's coach approached him after the game and said, I'm still trying to figure out why all these BYU fans were in the beer lines at this hockey venue. And Dave's like, well, these are more Jimmer fans from New York than your typical BYU fans.
That was great.
Great stuff. All right. We're feeling good talking Jimmer. Now it's time to discuss BYU football. 3-0, ranked number 15 in the country. And Brett McMurphy, Mark Schleybaugh, among other national writers.
Hold on, I got to grab the
now starting to discuss BYU as a potential New Year's Six recipient in 2021. In fact, we're asking the question today, is this year BYU's best shot at a New Year's Six bowl, or is it at a later date, Greg?
Well, you've only been, 3-0 in consecutive years for the first time since 1951 and 52. So BYU's never been in this situation to be in the discussion, let's put it that way. But last year was always going to be, yes, 3-0 or 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, but schedule. That said, if they'd gone 12-0 last year, you would have liked to have seen how that would have challenged the committee to place BYU. It might have been they were left out of the New Year's Six, but it could have been that 12-0 got them in, just for the fact that they cobbled together a schedule, won every game, but Coastal will never know. This year, 3-0, if you get to 4-0, you're in the October discussion. It would have to be the best shot because you're not in the discussion undefeated in October ever. But you would be with a better schedule with 7 P5s on the slate. And there are so much to do but before it becomes a truly legitimate discussion. But, I think Brett McMurphy even qualified it. He says, hey, even 11-1 BYU he thinks should get in at that point. So you're not having to go 12-0 at that point because of the number of P5s you're playing. Let's say you're in a typical P5 league. You're going to play 8 or 9 P5s.
Yes.
Okay.
And BYU's probably one Power 5 in non-conference.
Yeah, and BYU's playing 7. So you're practically playing a P5 schedule. Yeah. And so there really isn't that drawback, but it's all about staying in the conversation with the O in the L column as long as you possibly can. And it's crazy to think about, too. I mean, this is a storied football program, tremendous history, and never, ever have they been 4-0 in back-to-back seasons. It just doesn't get there.
That's
it
insane.
doesn't get there.
Yeah.
You know?
Of all the kind of 79 to 85 run and everything,
Yeah.
never did it, which is wild.
Yeah.
But this team has, which is incredible. So
at least 3-0. 4-0, would come Saturday, and that'll be the first time ever.
Ever.
So, yeah.
So we were talking about, okay, when BYU's in the Big 12, to your point, you're allowed a loss or two. BYU actually in the Big 12 could have 2 losses and still make a New Year's Six or a college football playoff if it expands. So the degree of difficulty gets actually a little lower. It's super high when you have fewer pure P5s. But what is it about this team that you're seeing that we're all trying to figure out is like, what's making this team this team? What are you seeing that's different or unique about this group?
Maybe just the multiplicity of options perhaps that BYU has on offense right now, beginning with the quarterback himself. He's a pretty special player, and not to discredit the backup who proved he can come in and win a game for you. So let's just say that at quarterback in general, they're really well set up.
Yeah.
But and we could use even the fact that Isaac Rex scores his first 2 touchdowns of the season in Game 3. Well, that's not like, oh, BYU finally discovered the tight end again. It's a matter of the tight ends got so much attention from last year that they weren't always open on the plays. But that means that Neil Pau'u's a multiple touchdown scoring guy. Gunnar Romney's a multiple touchdown scoring guy in the first couple games. So they can really go so many places right now. And then Tyler Algier is just kind of the taken for granted, going to get you the hard yards and grind into the end zone when you need it kind of guy that can also win a game for you on defense. So they have all these different options, and I don't think that Aaron Roderick's offense is by anywhere close to its peak, right? I mean, this is still growing and learning and bringing guys along. It's going to get better and better as they get more and more chemistry together because they're good right now, but they're 27, 28 points a game good. This team has the ability, I think, to be in the 30s points per game good when it gets really going here.
And the Nakuas haven't even gotten going. Honestly, like we
you
thought
want to talk about
Sampson
more
would be like,
multiplicity,
you know what I mean?
Right,
options.
they weren't able to really hit the ground running because they were kind of held back in camp, right?
Yeah.
But now, so that's a process. Once they get going and really into this thing, I think it's gonna be special.
The BYU defense is holding opponents in 3 games, all Power 5 opponents again, to an average of under 17 points, 16.66667 repeating or whatever we're going to call it.
Thank you, Leroy.
Okay. Hey, you're welcome. So looking at the defense, how realistic is it that they can sustain that level of holding opponents to 17 or fewer?
Well, I was just tracking it a few minutes ago and posted a tweet about it because I thought it was interesting. You've played 3 straight P5s, and they're all under 17 points or fewer. Okay? When did we start thinking about P5? Like, when did P5 become a thing? Well, you could argue early 2000s. I took it back to 1998 when the BCS started, okay? So from 98 till now, BYU had never, until the first 3 weeks of this season, held 3 straight P5s to 17 points or fewer. So it's historically good that way. If you want to go back to the end of 1983, Missouri, and the first 2 games of 84, Pitt and Baylor, you would technically get 3 current P5s that they held to 17 or fewer, but the P5 didn't exist back then. Pitt was independent, Baylor was Southwest Conference. So as we know the P5, this has never happened, where you play 3 straight high-level P5 teams. You could argue caliber, right? But, Arizona's struggling. But play P5s or P5s. Have 3 straight P5s to 17 points or fewer. It never happened until this year. So they're doing a lot of things that haven't been done before by a historically really solid football program.
That's awesome. And I think BYU broke through this confidence barrier last year. Yes, the schedule was different, but BYU's like, no, we're relevant as an independent. We can do this. And then getting the invite to the Big 12 and doing this now, it's just awesome.
Yeah,
man.
one of the great things is that at the back half of this thing, you're already in the Big 12. Like you're not having to prove anything to anyone anymore, really. Yes. You've already done all the heavy lifting. Now you kind of get to enjoy the fruits of your labors by showing people what you really are and are building to become. And when you get to the Big 12, you have an even greater chance to succeed in that environment.
Well, BYU's next display is against a team they're heavily favored against, USF, coming back to Provo. The Vengeance match, as several players have called it. Cougars are a 23-point favorite, but we know that USF's going to have some talent. So what type of challenges will they bring to BYU, even though the Cougars are on paper supposed to win by a good margin?
Yeah, well, they've clearly decided to throw all their eggs in the freshman quarterback basket, and that's great for them in terms of choosing to build. But I think it's also something that BYU can really, if not tee off on, take advantage of. This is a really good defense, and they're playing a guy that's getting his second start, and it's a heavy dose of RPO. But it's a team that's lost 14 straight FBS games.
Yeah.
All right, so it's a take care of business kind of game for BYU. And the Cougs don't, it's rare that BYU play an opponent multiple times and not pick up a win. Very few teams have done that to BYU, and I don't think BYU is about to go 0-2 against USF. That said, you've got to play better than you did last week. You simply have to have that be your objective. And there's nothing to worry about. I think offense, defense, and special teams can all show you that there are standouts on this USF team, but as a collective, BYU's just got to go out and put a little bit of hammer down.
And hey, Jimmer at halftime.
Yeah, Jimmer at halftime.
Yeah.
He is Greg Wrubell, the voice of the Cougars. Thanks for hanging out with us. I hope there are moments this season that make you lose your mind as it relates to BYU football.
Well, we've gotten there. Hey, Utah game.
Hey, there you go.
Good.
There were probably a couple there. And last week, even though it was a different vibe, the way the crowd helped win that game, I thought was pretty special as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for hanging out with us, Greg.
You bet, guys.
Okay, coming up, Associate Athletic Director Liz Darger on the new Women's Athlete NIL with Smarty Street.
And we take a closer look at all of the voters in the latest AP poll. BYU was a high of 9, a low of 22. Are the Cougars more towards 9 or 22? You decide. This is BYU Sports Nation.
BYU Food to Go's convenient location at 2191 North Canyon Road in Provo makes bringing popular BYU foods to your next event easy. Everything's ready when you need it at the drive and load pickup. You drive in and they load no matter the weather. And stop in the on-site creamery for great BYU chocolate milk and ice cream. BYU Food to Go, bringing campus to your table. Call for details, 801-422-5001.
Sometimes you just have to tell yourself you're going to do it and hit it head on.
For them just to be by my side through the whole thing is incredible.
We're going to build each other up. It's about family, about getting all of us across.
He will never be alone again. He has us.
Never had no brother.
Yeah, we got it.
For the last time. Are you still with me?
Yes.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Visible Supply Chain Management.
11th ranked BYU women's volleyball opens up West Coast Conference play tomorrow night as the Cougars host Pacific, 9 Eastern on the BYU TV app.
He is Jarom. I'm Spencer. This is BYU Sports Nation. You can always interact with the show. Plenty of fantastic content. Follow us on our social media platforms that include Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Let's whip it! The Cougar Whip Around, presented by Visible Supply Chain Management, tackling America's most challenging shipping problems.
In his press conference this week, South Florida head coach Jeff Scott gave us another soundbite. That's 2 now. Comparing Jaren Hall to who?
Yeah, everybody was excited when the guy graduated last year. That's all everybody told me. Hey, they lost their quarterback. You guys are going to be good. And this guy, I think Coach Spencer describes him as a faster Baker Mayfield. I mean, that's what he looks like. He can really run. He throws the ball extremely well.
Is Jaren Hall Baker Mayfield-esque?
I kind of like the comparison. I hadn't thought about it until Jeff Scott and his coordinators brought it up, but I think that is a fair analysis. Sure, Jaren Hall's a little bit more raw than Baker was as the pinnacle of his Oklahoma career, but
more Texas Tech Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, there are definite similarities, and Jaren Hall is faster than Baker Mayfield. If he can get that accuracy down, watch out, Jaren. We've got another NFL pro prospect.
Yeah, I like it. Baker Mayfield won the Heisman. Baker Mayfield's an NFL starting quarterback. That's very flattering. Yeah, I think there are elements of Jaren's game, his ability to dance in the pocket, to look downfield. his elusiveness. Obviously, his speed, like you said, is better than Baker. Yeah, dude, I like it.
When he's rolling out of the pocket, like, they look the same.
Is he a backward hat guy? Is Colin Cowherd anti-Jaron Hall?
Ooh, I don't know. I think Jaron Hall, because he's a father now, might not be a backwards hat type of guy anymore.
Because he's a dad?
Yeah.
You and I are backward hat guys still, and we have kids.
Yeah, it's true. Good point. Yeah, throw that one out the window. BYU received a high AP vote of number 9 from Ryan Pritt of West Virginia and a low of 22 from Bryce Miller, San Diego Union Tribune.
Interesting.
Colton Bartholomew, the Wisconsin State Journal, and Pete Martini, Salem Statesman, Journal also voted BYU low of 22. Is BYU more a 9 or a number 22 team in your opinion, Jarom?
It's 9 because BYU has 2 ranked wins. There's not too many teams that have done that. And was it nobody has 3 Power 5 wins right now?
Nobody except BYU.
So, 2.5. Arizona's like half Power 5. But anyway, no, BYU's more like 9, dude. BYU's resume is fantastic right now. BYU's resume is one of the best in the country. First 6 games, BYU's taking care of business here. You talked about it yesterday. The 3 G5s are up next. Let's go.
Who was it? Royce Young of Fox Sports that had BYU in his 3rd tier, top 10 team. RJ Young, yeah, okay. Yeah. And then Bruce Feldman has BYU at number 7 in his poll.
7 feels a little high.
Because they're ranking them based on meritocracy. Yes. What have you done to this point?
Yes.
So, yeah, BYU should lean more towards number 9. In fact, they're number 15. 15's closer to 9 than it is to 22.
Yeah, I'd still like BYU at like 12 right now.
Okay,
Seneca Knight tweeted the following out yesterday, praying I get this waiver. I got more to prove. I'm told the waiver is in to the NCAA officially. Are we concerned he won't get a waiver to play?
No, I'm not concerned. Why would the NCAA all of a sudden decide to not let Seneca Knight play at BYU when they're giving waivers that you get a waiver and you get a waiver and you get... no, I have no reason to believe it's not going to get it.
If this was a month from now, yeah. But not right now.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good. Okay, coming up, I go inside the film room with the Elk, Isaac Reck.
And we announced a groundbreaking deal for all women athletes at BYU, thanks to Smarty Streets. Liz Darger, Senior Associate Athletic Director, is going to join us to discuss the details of that and how it's going to change things for all BYU women athletes. This is BYU Sports Nation.
Introducing the all-new 2021 Nissan Rogue. A fuel-efficient car that's compact enough to park just about anywhere, but has enough cargo space to fit your hobbies, your kids' hobbies, and your dog's hobbies. It's equipped with the latest safety and efficiency technology for a smooth and quiet ride wherever you want to go, whether it's through the neighborhood or across the country. Are you ready to Rogue? It's at Tim Daly Nissan Southtown.
Quick crack. Wash all you want. Don't drive dirty.
Professor Rock here.
The Food Nanny.
Chandler Scott here.
Sam Ree.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
I just want to tell you about this amazing,
excellent, cool account called My Style.
My Style checking. I'm talking travel points.
Gift card. Concert tickets.
All just for using my account.
That's My Style.
So check it out.
Give it a shot.
Open your My Style checking account today.
Familiar with the BYU TV app?
Yes.
I beg your pardon?
Sure, it's got great original TV shows. But it also gives you access to family films for free.
Wow. Awesome!
So gather around, grab some popcorn, and let us do the rest.
It'll be fun.
Watch some of your favorite films anytime, anywhere. With a free BYU TV app.
I like it.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Countdown to kickoff gets you ready for number 15 BYU. That sounds good. Against South Florida. Saturday night watches Dave, Blaine, David, and Spazance get you ready for the game with insights and interviews leading up to kick. 9 Eastern time on BYU TV and the app. I know it says 2-hour show, 8:30. That is not correct. It's at 9 Eastern time on Saturday.
We'll be ready to go late into the night once again.
It's going to be awesome, man.
This is BYU Sports Nation. We're doing it live in Studio B, and we are now joined by BYU Senior Associate Athletic Director and Senior Woman Administrator at BYU, Liz Darger. It's a pleasure to have you in Studio B, Liz.
So good to be here. Lots of great things happening.
Oh my gosh.
The day after an incredible name, image, and likeness deal from Smarty Streets to all female student athletes at BYU. This is groundbreaking, transcendent stuff, and it's really fun to watch.
No, it really is. There's when NIL legislation first was discussed, I think it was mostly discussed around football, men's basketball, and really the high-profile student athletes. And we've seen a lot of things happen around the country with NIL, but it's been really, really neat to see how different corporations have stepped up to sign these deals with student athletes that they believe bring value. And being in that room yesterday and witnessing that with our female student athletes, it was an amazing feeling. And I think Smarty Streets is really paving the way and leading the way. They are showing the importance of empowering women. They're showing the value that women bring. Our female student athletes are remarkable. You guys know that. I mean, you think about what they bring in terms of a confidence, what they bring in terms of they are fierce competitors, but they are kind, they are smart, they are inclusive. And so you look at their hard work, you look at their platforms and how they use their platforms for good. And for a company like Smarty Streets to come along and say, we want to do deals with every single one of them, I think it just says a lot about our female student athletes and says a lot about Smarty Streets and their vision for what they want to do.
They could have said, we just want the Courtney Waymans and the Michaela Coolahans and the Shayla Gonzalez. Mm-hmm. They did not. They said everybody.
They did.
Which is pretty cool. So when did this deal sort of come about, and how does what's BYU's involvement in helping facilitate or not these kinds of things? Because you guys want the athletes to have this, but also there's sort of rules, and we're still figuring all this out. Yet BYU's kind of leading the way here.
So Smarty Streets and Jonathan Oliver, their CEO, he expressed interest and reached out to us for some education to make sure he wanted to understand NIL a little bit better. And so there were conversations where we were educating him about the rules, about things that he could do, and he would sort of ask things, work with our compliance department, and run things by us, and throughout those discussions, he indicated what his wishes were, and so he organized the meeting at the Provo Marriott yesterday, and he wanted every single female student athlete to have that opportunity, and we were just blown away by that and thrilled by that, and really grateful. Again, I think it shows. I mean, anytime you elevate a student athlete and show how they can use their brand for good is a great thing. But for him to see the value of offering it to every single female student athlete, it's next level. There's nothing like it in the country. It's absolutely next level, and love that it's happening at BYU.
I saw Front Office Sports tweeted that FAU got a deal from the Florida Panthers similar for their women, but I haven't heard anything else with anybody else. Have you?
No, I haven't, and I heard a little bit about that deal, and this deal that Smarty Streets is offering is up to $6,000 for each of those female student athletes for some social media posts and also some engagement with their employees at corporate events and things like that. Which that's a piece I actually really like. In speaking with their CEO, Jonathan Oliver expressed that he wants his employees, he wants Smarty Streets and that corporation to get to know these female student athletes and how incredible they are. He wants his employees and their families to be able to interact with these female student athletes, and I think that's a part that we don't talk about as much. But any of our fans, Cougar Nation, as they interact with our female student athletes, they see that these are just remarkable women and women that we'd want all of our young boys and young girls to look up to and say, I want to be like that when I grow up.
Amen to that.
BYU Senior Associate Athletic Director Liz Darger is with us on BYU Sports Nation.
I was going to say, Spencer and I are two of the champions of women's sports calling these games, right? So this is awesome. I'm so happy for them because they deserve this, and hopefully this is just the beginning, right?
Absolutely. And just from a timeline perspective, how long did it take to put a deal like this in place, having to jump through hoops and go through some red tape through the NCAA? So how long of a timeline was this?
Yeah, there were discussions happening over a number of weeks, and wanting to make sure that Smarty Streets had the information they needed, and then working through compliance and looking at some other things. And so yeah, it was a number of weeks to make sure that Smarty Streets felt like they had the information they needed to be ready to strike a deal, and that we felt comfortable from our end in terms of giving the proper education as well.
So, I mean, this is up to $2 million in compensation if every female athlete was given the $6,000. Is this a deal that will be a recurring thing, or is this just a one-year deal and then you'll visit it again next year? How does that work?
So Smarty Streets has indicated that this is a deal for now, and they are really anxious and excited and hopeful that other corporations will follow suit. And we'll see the value that these female student athletes bring, and so that's really the hope, which is one of the neat things I think about CEO Jonathan Oliver. Is it's not just about him and his corporation. He really is looking for ways to empower women as well. So his hope is that this just starts a groundswell of lots of companies and corporations becoming a part of this.
How many female student athletes are there?
About 300, if you include Cougarettes and the female cheerleaders.
Yeah, 300. I'm telling you, it's wild that they said, yep, we're going all in on everybody. I just think that's amazing. Okay, we buried the lead here. Each athlete gets Air Jordans.
Yeah.
As part of the deal.
How about that?
Yeah, that was kind of a snuck in, right? I mean, yeah, where's that? There were very loud cheers for that. That was announced before.
Get the 6,000, give me the Jordans.
No, in fact,
6K.
I turned to the person next to me and said, "Oh my gosh, like the cheering for the Jordans was
that might be
incredible.
$2 million by itself. Just the Air Jordans.
That is incredible. In terms of that compensation, it said up to $6,000. How will is it just dependent on how much they can do, how much time they have to help out? Or
Right, exactly.
Earning capability.
Right. So there are different deals that Smarty Streets will present to individual student athletes. Yeah, based on their time, what they want to commit to it, what they want to give to it, and so that's totally within Smarty Streets and each individual student athlete to work through that.
What's the role of BYU athletics in helping the athletes with this? Because you want them to thrive, but you also have this fun. It's not an issue, it's just a thing you have to deal with, I guess, of athletics itself gets sponsors and the individuals get sponsors too, and you're hoping those can both thrive.
Sure, yeah, and as NIL legislation was being talked about at the beginning, those were a lot of things athletic departments around the country were talking about, is how do we help support our student athletes and this wonderful new opportunity, and we support that opportunity and want them to have every opportunity. We also have corporate sponsorships that are very important to us as an athletic department, and so how do we sort of strike that balance of encouraging our student athletes and encouraging corporations to do what they feel is in the best interest of their company. And so we have done a lot of education, and we've tried to communicate very transparently with our student athletes that we support this name, image, likeness, and this opportunity for them, and the importance of communication and coordination, so that we make sure that we're doing our best to support them, give them the education they need, but we also are doing what we can to make sure that we are supporting our corporate sponsorships that are so valuable to our athletic department.
And then Utah County is uniquely suited to approach this, which is a huge blessing for everybody associated with BYU.
Absolutely. Part of our mission as an athletic department is that we want to be distinct and exceptional. And we believe in winning. We want to be exceptional at what we do, but we also believe in being distinct. And I think you see from the past couple of months and what's happened with NIL and some things that have benefited our BYU student athletes, it's very distinct. And in some ways, it's sort of leading the way, I think, for other athletic departments to see if, like, oh, there could be a different approach in terms of how companies and corporations can address this and can approach this. And that's all, I think, because of Cougar Nation, because of Utah County, because of our wonderful corporations around here, and donors and fans that see the value of all of our student athletes. And when you think about it, too, I kind of compare it to, I'm not a parent, but I'm a very fiercely proud aunt.
Yes.
And when you have your nieces and nephews that you think are like the most remarkable little people on the planet, and when someone else recognizes that, you're like, thank you. Yes, I've been telling you this for so long. Can you? And so that's what yesterday felt like, is for us as an athletic department, for our coaches, for our student athletes. Like, we know these are absolutely astounding women. They are unbelievable. And so to have a company come in and recognize that and want to use that, I think we all felt like very proud parents or proud aunts and uncles being like, yes, this is what we've been telling the world, and thank you for recognizing it.
What a fantastic deal that's going. Leads me to my final question, Liz. you brought up that this is setting an example for other athletic departments across the country. How busy are the phones right now with schools watching what BYU is doing and calling you and be like, how is this happening? Like, what kind of communications are you having with other schools?
Yeah, I would say as we talk with colleagues around the country, there are lots of discussions, and every state has their own legislation around name, image, likeness, and so every state's going to function a little bit differently in terms of what their constraints are. But we've had very great, healthy discussions with our colleagues who have said, wow, what's happening there in Provo is pretty great, and it's always fun to be on that end of a conversation to feel like, yeah, there's some really neat things happening here, and really it all comes down to our student athletes. We're so proud of them and proud to be associated with them.
Fantastic. We appreciate you hanging out with us to discuss this groundbreaking stuff. This is incredible.
It's awesome. It's great. Thanks for having me.
Air Jordans for everybody. Love it. Okay, coming up, today's Rise and Shoutouts.
And Jarom Jordan sits down with the Elk, Isaac Rex. What happened in that last play to seal the game against Arizona State? This is BYU Sports Nation.
My name is Spencer Finnegan. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. During my sophomore year, I got married to my sweetheart, Mary, and there's tons of unexpected expenses when it comes to marriage. We were looking for scholarships. I found the replenishment grant, and my local alumni chapter gave me a grant to help me focus in on school. I'm so excited to, now that I've graduated, give back to those students that are coming to BYU in the future.
The 10 of you are here because you are a force to be reckoned with in your sports.
I want to win at everything. I just don't want to lose.
I'm a girl from Oklahoma. I'm built for this. I'm just going to leave it all out there.
This is the first time that we've ever combined summer and winter sports in a single season. Are you ready to click in and hold on tight?
Let's go! Oh my God, it's head on head.
Physically, I can do it, but mentally, I'm just terrified.
The pressure right now is insane.
Everything's possible. We just have to keep trying.
Every moment matters.
I totally feel like Superwoman.
The athletes who win season 4 could possibly be seen as the greatest all-around champion ever.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
BYU Sports Nation always available on demand via the BYU TV and BYU radio apps.
Download the podcast, subscribe, rate, and review.
It's time to go behind the play that sealed the game for BYU against Arizona State in the film room. Jarom with Isaac Rex.
Okay, Isaac, first off, the Elk. Shout out to Jeff Hansen for the shirt and the nickname. Tell me the story here. What's the story?
I've probably told this story like 50 times. And the story has, I don't know how it got. I literally have no idea how it became a thing. Jeff Hansen made the nickname the Elk because I guess I run like an elk or something. I really only I knew what an elk was, but I've only seen deers. I've never even seen an elk. I like it though. I'm obviously going to keep it. I'm not opposed to it at all, so.
Okay, first 2 touchdowns of the season. Walk me through the first one.
This is just a fun little play, and I'm trying to sneak in.
You literally sneak. Like, you get down low right here.
I assume that backer right there had me man because it's man all around. There's a 4-eye right there inside of me, so I just kind of snuck right past him. And if you look right here, the person who makes the play is Mason Wake. He's kind of just like blocking for Jaron, and look, he pushed that guy out and gets that guy on the ground. Without that block right there, Jaron might have been sacked. So Mason did his job perfectly, and then I kind of did a little McGregor walk.
I was gonna say that's
with Sampson and Neal coming around. So.
Okay, your second touchdown is the game sealer, and this is a heck of a moment because Baylor Romney's in, Jaron Hall gets hurt, and Fesi Satake reveals after the game, he told Baylor, only throw it if he's open. Hey, you weren't exactly open, but I would argue just throw it up to you. Yes, you are open.
Yeah, I mean, I knew the corner was going to have me man, and then I see 25. He obviously has outside leverage on me, and so if you see Baylor, he obviously trips a little. There's linemen falling everywhere, and then right there, if you see the corner, he kind of bites outside, and I was able to just kind of sneak past him and go up and get it. But credit to Baylor, he threw a great ball on that.
Okay, and then I want you to break down Tyler Allgeier's play here, because this is one of the greatest plays in BYU football history. What did you see?
Jaron's faking the run, but there's a guy off the edge, so it's not the best fake. And so right here, the backer kind of jams me up. Mason kind of gets jammed up a little. He cuts inside. We knew Tyler was faster, but right here, right when you saw that hand wind up, like comes in and just boom, literally jumps right on top of his back, a perfect tackle. And if Jaron didn't hustle down there, that corner or safety would have gotten it, and they would have the ball on the 15. So Tyler Allgeier definitely had the play of the game. It's not the fact that he caught up to him, because obviously he's way faster. It's the fact that he had the awareness to punch the ball out. He basically won the game for us. So
incredible
super
play.
Awesome.
Okay, 3-0, South Florida coming to Provo.
Yep.
15th in the country. What's the vibe of the team right now, as you guys have had an incredible start to the season?
I mean, we beat 3 Pac-12 teams in a row, which is a great accomplishment for BYU, but we're not done yet. We're still, we're confident, but we're humble, and we're going to keep working hard and keep this thing going.
Okay, stay in that elk mode, man.
Okay, well.
It's in the film room with Jarom Jordan. Fantastic
Elk mode,
stuff.
man. It'll get you.
Yeah, can he do the sound? Probably not.
Doubt it.
We're working on that. Our question of the day for Isaac Rex and the entire BYU football team: is this their best shot at a New Year's 6 bowl game? 2021 at Cougar Stats on Twitter says yes and no. It might have the Power 5 profile to help them get in, but it also reduces the probability their final record will be good enough to get in.
Well stated.
And in the Big 12, you can have probably more losses and get in.
If the yeah, all depends on if the
Right.
team above you goes to playoff.
Our Elite Voice of the Day, presented by Sundance Mountain Resort. Ryan Scott on Instagram says, like Dory said, just keep winning. Just wait, is it winning or swimming? Hey. Either way.
Nice.
Great stuff. Today's Rise and Shoutouts presented by Mountain America Credit Union, the official credit union of BYU Athletics. Smarty Streets gets one.
Smarty Streets, absolutely. The Wilgars, Chrissy and Peyton. We're going to show you the Deep Blue on the show tomorrow if you missed it.
Oh.
You can go to the BYU TV app and watch it right now, social media. That's one that I was very excited that we could tell, the untold story of the Wilgars taking in 3 of Peyton's nieces and nephews.
Emotional,
just the big heart
emotional stuff
that they have. The cut was amazing. Stu Call, Courtney Fairborn and company. And then today's the anniversary of the Commonwealth play in 1984 against Hawaii, where he dives over the goal line and pulls down Cherry by his pads there and gets a stop, and BYU wins that game and ends up winning the national title.
The Tyler Allgeier play is right up there with that Commonwealth.
If BYU goes undefeated or 1 loss, we'll talk about it in the same breath.
Our thanks to today's guests, Greg Wrubell and Liz Darger.
Sorry to Dennis Pitta. We ran out of time.
For Jarom, I'm Spencer. Let's give another shout out to Joe Critchlow. We'll see you tomorrow
One of the
for
greats.
another new live episode of BYU Sports Nation. Go Cougs.
One of the old-timers.
Joe Critchlow.
Love Joe.